Welcome once again to the ARC Agency's formal CPD series and our third session of the morning. Thank you again for joining us. For those whose first session it is, my name is Brooke, and on behalf of the ARC Agency, as well as today's presenters and their behind-the-scenes team, I would like to thank you all for attending. As I previously mentioned, here are our recommended steps for success today. You must be registered for all sessions you wish to attend. Please check the chat for invite details should you wish to add any extras for the day or tomorrow. Included in this link, if you have not done so already, please download the appropriate questionnaires for the presentations you are attending. Each session runs for 1 hour and sessions will start on time with access closing 5 minutes after commencement. Your CPD certificates will be issued by our presenters and recordings of the sessions will be made available to watch again following our 2-day wrap-up. We encourage you to ask questions via the Q&A function, which you will find at the bottom of your screen in the black control ribbon. Each session has technical specialists on hand to answer your questions live. As part of the formal assessment and guidelines, each presentation includes a questionnaire which you are required to complete and is to be kept for your own records. Please note, if you are after a CPD certificate and have joined as a team or on someone else's invite link, please let me know so I can allocate your certificates accordingly. Please email brooke@thearcagency.com.au. I again would like to thank you all for joining us. And if I may, let me present our third webinar session with consultant specializing in health and corrections, Ben Hill of Galvin Engineering, presenting best practice bathroom specification for mental and behavioral healthcare facilities. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Brooke. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Galvin Engineering and myself, I'd like to thank the ARC Agency for allowing Galvin Engineering to participate in this program and to deliver the CPD, Best Practice Bathroom Specification for Mental Health, Behavioural Healthcare Facilities. A bit embarrassing. Introducing myself, my name is Ben Hill. Yes, that is my name. I've been working in the hydraulic plumbing sector for over 20 years, and I've helped deliver some of the biggest projects in Victoria for mental health and corrections. Work directly with healthcare facilities, architects, major builders, users and other stakeholders. Some of the major projects that I have delivered have been Chisholm Road Prison, Dame Phyllis Cross Correctional, Thomas Embling Hospital, currently working on the Pathway 144 beds, which was Sunshine, St Albans, Mackellar and Royal Melbourne Hospital, as well as Youth Justice, Parkville and Malmesbury. Galvin Engineering, what do? We design, manufacture and supply safe, green and smart water solutions for high risk and high care environments. Our purpose is to provide water solutions for a healthier environment. The Galvin Way. With a clear focus on health and safety of users and the community, we continue to lead the way with innovative taps, water management systems and fixtures that are specifically designed to meet the complex requirements of our key markets. Local support. We are focused on providing uncompromising customer service through our offices in WA, New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and we have distributors in Tasmania, New Zealand, the UK and the USA. The Galvin Clear Lead Safe technology. Following our passion to provide water solutions for a healthy environment and listening to the demands of the low lead and lead-free taps in the community, we wanted to offer our customers a greater level of choice. Adopting lead-safe products early on, we were first to market in 2018. As Australia's leading experts in lead-safe water solutions, we already have a big selection of NCC 2002 compliant low lead, DZR brass and lead-free stainless steel tapware for drinking and hand washing solutions in healthcare, education and public areas available. So today's learning outcomes. So 1, we're looking at the Australasian Health Facility Guidelines, Aus Health Facility Guidelines. We want the intent and purpose, including design principles discussed in the guidelines for mental health. We're looking at health planning units in hospitals, a brief explanation of health planning units in mental health. 3, we're looking at design standards, what to consider in bathrooms at mental health facilities. We're looking at safety, anti-ligature, robustness. 4, testing principles, anti-ligature and robustness from the UK, USA, including Walgate and Galvin engineering. And 5, we're looking at the NCC 2002 lead-free requirements, why they are important and what their implications mean to specifications. Today, I'm assuming you would have all received a CPD assessment activity mental health questionnaire. Now, please note, certificates of completion can only be issued upon submission of the CPD questionnaire. Please make sure you fill these out and please make sure you hand these in to get your accreditation. Section 1, Australasian Health Facility Guidelines. So here, what are the Australasian Health Facility Guidelines, AusHealth? So the AusHealth Guidelines are an initiative of the Australasian Health Infrastructure Alliance, the AHIA. AHIA membership is comprised of representatives from government, health infrastructure, planning and delivery entities in all jurisdictions in Australia and New Zealand. They are being developed with the aim of good practice health facility designs by establishing consistent and universally accepted set of facility guidelines that assist in the efficient design of healthcare facilities. Why does the AusHealth Facility Guidelines exist? The purpose is to share information, industry knowledge regarding good health facility designs and acceptable clinical practices, to provide flexible facility responses to allow for the delivery of current and emerging models of care, making health assessments fit for purpose now into the future. So essentially, it's not a static ecosystem, it's an evolving fluid ecosystem. We're always looking for emerging models and better ways of providing healthcare. A vital starting point for designers based on research, clinical and consumer input and other evidence. So essentially saving hundreds of hours of effort by designers, managers, construction and clinicians on all public health infrastructure projects which they have been applied. And it's a central source for all government and non-government bodies that helps reduce project costs, improve timelines, and more importantly, expose health facility planners and clinical service providers to new and better ways of approaching problems. So the overreaching guidelines in mental health, the aims. So the 3 aims are to maintain public confidence, achieve affordable solutions, and to promote built solutions. The aim of the AusHealth Guidelines are to assist with the design of safe health facilities that provide privacy and dignity for patients, support contemporary models of care and the needs of carers, visitors, and staff. This is not always achievable though. When facilities are refurbished, it may not always be possible to apply all spaces and design requirements within the constraints of the existing facility. Here, we look at the planning stages to achieve project implementation. So A, we're looking at the introduction and instructions for use. Part B, we're looking at health facilities and briefing and planning. Part C, we're looking at design for access, mobility, OH&S and security. Part D, we're looking at infection prevention and control. Part E, we're looking at building services, environmental designs. And Part F, we're looking at project implementation. This is all under the banner of we're trying to get away from the cold, clinical, sterile past of mental health facilities and making them much more of a non-institutional, homely environment that reduces stress and encourages family and friends to visit. This homely environment will allow consumers to continue, where possible, to undertake activities of daily living and participate in a range of activities. So essentially, we're looking at Part B of this and health facility briefing and planning. Part B covers the briefing and planning issues that result from the translation of health service delivery requirements into a brief for a physical facility. The framework of authority requirement is recognised and includes industry standards, codes, manuals that that commonly apply with every project. Section 2, we're looking at HPUs in mental health. So health planning units. So here we have six health planning units in mental health. So here we're looking at one, child and adolescent mental health units. 2, we're looking at PECC. What does it mean? Psychiatric Emergency Care Centre. 3, we're looking at adult acute mental health inpatient units. 4, we're looking at older people's acute mental health inpatient units. 5, we're looking at non-acute mental health units, including rehabilitation, extended care, and forensics. 6, we're looking at mental health intensive care units. HPU 131, mental health overreaching guidelines. Description of mental health inpatient units. So whether it's adult, child, adolescent, subacute, acute, high dependency, voluntary or involuntary, mental health inpatient units are an important component of a comprehensive mental health system and aim to provide safe and therapeutic recovery-orientated care in the least restrictive environment possible. The physical environment ambience of an acute mental health inpatient unit will impact on the consumer's recovery, outcomes, safety of those consumers and staff working within the service. The guideline provides overreaching principles that seek to promote positive physical environments so that the optimal recovery outcomes for consumers can be achieved. Mental health inpatient units will also support the needs of activities of carers, families, friends, and more importantly, staff. A brief explanation of each HPU in mental health. First, we look at child and adolescents, typically between the ages of 12 to 18 years, who experience severe mental illness and are unable to be supported in an intensive community support environment and treatment resistant to where a supportive environment is required due to medical complications. B, we look at psychiatric emergency care centres. PECC is a mental health service providing short-term admission for those with low, medium acuity mental health problems who present to an emergency department and do not require admission to an acute mental health inpatient unit. This service option provides the least restrictive hospital-based inpatient care for those requiring a brief hospital stay. And lastly, we look at adult acute mental health inpatient units. HPU 134 units provide short to medium term inpatient assessment and treatment services for people, typically aged 18 to 64, experience severe episodes of mental illness who cannot adequately be treated in less restrictive environments. Section 3, we look at design standards. Design standards considered for mental health. The two most important design standards must be considered are security and safety. As specialised service areas, mental health and behavioural health facilities have needs that are not always directly comparable to standard healthcare settings. Designers must balance security and safety alongside providing an open, comfortable, familiar setting that is beneficial to mental health and recovery. As high-cost, low-volume institutions, mental and behavioural healthcare facilities aim to provide mental health while reducing the risk of harm and to patients, and more importantly, staff. Some of the risk management we need to consider: substance misuse, destructive behaviour, escapes and absconding, self-harm and violence. Design standards considered for mental health. In Australia, there is no dedicated standard governing the design of bathrooms in mental health and behavioural healthcare settings. Designers and specifiers must comply with the relevant Australian standards and refer to local and global best practice guidelines. So here's an example of 1428.2. So accessibility and mobility. Now, I often find this when dealing with architects and designers when delivering mental health facilities, kind of at odds with each other. So there needs to be a little bit of common sense approach. Dispensations will need to be allowed. If you want to ask more about this, there's a Q&A after this. We can discuss this at length. In the United States and the United Kingdom, there are guidelines, standards, and regulations that assist designers in choosing bathroom fixtures and tapware that include testing procedures for such products. Designers and specifiers should also consider a range of certifications gained by any fixture and tapware solution during the specification process. These are strong indicators of performance, safety, and reliability. Better designing bathrooms. So, great image here of how we can achieve a finished bathroom in a mental health facility whilst having anti-ligature properties, or also having a home-like environment. It's non-clinical, it's non-sterile, it's non-cold, it's quite warm. So one, we look at the Western Australian Department of Health recommends creating a home-like environment as near to residential as possible, selecting shower heads, taps, and other fixtures with a residential style aesthetic as opposed to products with a cold, institutionalized look and feel. Tapware that is ergonomic and easy to use with minimal force is preferable to support a wide range of users of varying physical ability. Ease of operation is also a factor. Patients should be able to operate bathroom tapware and fixtures easily and independently. Familiar materials such as polished chrome is recommended, as are common elements like mixer taps, which are often found in residential homes. Just a tip, I would not be putting single lever mixer taps in mental health facilities. Putting safety first. In the context of mental and behavioural healthcare, international multidisciplinary designers Hassel noted that fundamental safety issues in bathrooms can be addressed by the following measures: anti-ligature design, anti-slip surfaces, universal access, ergonomics, and adherence to all relevant standards. Considering these special requirements, mental health facilities are often at the forefront of developments in the medical architecture. The clinical challenges in this field are also shared across the globe, making international guidelines as well as the input of clinicians, scientists, architects, policymakers, manufacturers, medico-legal authorities relevant when designing and specifying such spaces. Anti-ligature design elements. Anti-ligature design, i.e. the avoidance of any architectural elements to which a cord or other bindings can be attached to create a ligature point that may cause injury or death, aligns with the design recommendations from around the globe. Designers should seek to minimize or eliminate entirely ligature points within bathrooms, including concealing pipework and ductwork where possible. Now, there's a bit of a difference in this as well. Very, very different when we're dealing with public mental health facilities compared to private mental health facilities. Private ones don't usually have such acute mental health, so may be able to have some dispensations on product selection, where in the public might be dealing with high acute mental health, so these must be adhered to. So we're looking at examples here. Again, we're looking at as normal as possible. For me, it looks similar to household single lever mixers. Obviously, this doesn't look like a single lever mixer. Tested to minimize ligature points. Effective operation. We're looking at optional inbuilt thermostatic mixing valves and shut-off safety valves reduces the risk of scalding should the cold water line fail, while the use of lead-free, lead-safe brass minimises the risk of lead leaching into the water supply. Robust design elements. Robustness in sanitary ware which can withstand the abuse that should render standard household grade products to be irrevotably damaged. Generally, these design elements are used in high traffic public areas like schools, public facilities, sports stadiums, train stations. However, in mental health care settings, the intent is to minimise or eliminate sharp edges or pieces that could be used to self-harm or used as a weapon. To assist with infection control, these products are manufactured in one piece and designed with clean, smooth lines to avoid dirt retention. Section 4, we look at testing principles. Here we look at testing principles in the US. So the New York State Office of Mental Health Patient Standard, we look at the testing methodology. Ligature resistant looping either means looping around or tying off to any part or device on or attached to the product. ligature-resistant wedging. The product must resist the ability of a flexible device to be used as a ligature by means of being knotted, jammed, or otherwise wedged into any opening, crevice, or operating clearance associated with the product. Cutting. The product must resist attempts to be used as an instrument of self-harm by cutting, not only to themselves, but to others. Weaponization. The product must resist attempts to break, damage, tamper, or disassemble. Tamper resistant. The product must resist attempts to break, damage, tamper, or disassemble in the manner that renders the product inoperable. Jumping. The product must resist attempts by a person to pass through and gain access to a change in level from which a person may jump for the purpose of inflicting self-harm. Contraband storage. The product must not provide concealed spaces that may be readily accessible by a person and used for hiding contraband. Ingestion. The product must resist attempts to break or disassemble for the purpose of ingesting portions orally. Here we look at the test principles in the UK. A little bit different, but the same. I don't really like this slide. It's hard to read, but we will proceed. So one, we're looking at the scope. We're looking at the prerequisites. Ability to be renewed. It's a big one for us. Our Wargate products are 100% renewable. We're looking at the cleaning of the test specimen. We're looking at test samples, gouging, abrasion. We're looking at blow lamps. We're looking at cigarette burns. We're looking at all of these kinds of things. So very, very different, but the same. So we're looking at ligature points. We're looking at robustness. We're looking at tamper proof, but we're also looking at fire ratings, burnings, all of those kinds of things. So at Galvin Engineering, all solid surface products are compliant with the UK test processes and previously stated and are currently being updated through design in mental health associations. The range of Galvin Care products is based on the combination of both the UK, USA test principles. So what we do at Galvin Engineering, we take some from the US, we take some from the UK, we actually test our products. So specifiers and architects can specify our products with a level of surety that we can provide documentation that we can meet the global standards that are required. Here we look at shower and basin controls. So we're looking at anti-leakage compliance to minimize self-harm, tamper resistant design to minimize damage, thermostatically controlled to provide maximum safety for patients, proportionality temperature controls. We're looking at safe TMV approval limits, concealed services, either front or rear fixing, electronic water management systems, anti-ligature design with domestic appearance. Here we look at shower and accessible showers. We're looking at anti-ligature design handheld shower adapters that allow for easy removal of the handheld shower after use. Durable chrome finishes for easy cleaning and homely look. Utilizing a quick connect fitting for a safe and reliable shut-off and easily attached and released. If the hose assembly is detached, prior to shutting off the sample, water ceases. Can be adopted an existing hose and shower, or can be adapted to existing hose and showers, I apologize. Simple installation, which is facilitated from the front of the wall, designed to minimize the risk of vandalism and suicide. Tamper resistant screws, finished of a high duty bright chrome plate, wall mounted and ceiling mounted options. We look at anti-ligature and anti-vandal basins. So what we want to do is eliminate the risk of sharp edges, purchase points, strangulation points, leverage points. And we virtually want to eliminate breakages, dents and scratches, weapons, and replacement costs. Now, this is a very interesting slide. So this is just a standard vitreous china pan. So as you can see, this has a rim on it. This is a ductile line fitting. As you can see, we've just made a ligature point by using a pen, and we've tied off into that ductile line fitting. That is around about 15 kilos, and that sat there for 3 weeks without breaking. Lastly, Galvin Engineering, again, fourth generation family business based in WA with branches across all states and distributors in the USA, UK, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia. Some of the areas that we do play in, we play in education, mental health, health and aged care, custodial, research, hospitality, sports and recreations. We are accredited quality to ISO 9001, and we also are accredited ISO 1401 environmental. We're Australian made, family owned, and we're the first to market for Galvin Clear lead safe tapware. I'd like to thank you all for participating in today's CPD presentation. It's been a great honour. Brooke, back to you, and I will see you more in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, and such an informative presentation, a really nice overview, and you've definitely given several points where you've highlighted what you're considering for the future and some really interesting facts on guidelines, principles, and obviously those global standards. We will jump into the formal part of our seminar. It is an online link, which we can get the information back to you once the day is completed. So let's get those clarified. First, Ben, I hope you will help me to answer and maybe guide our audience through some of the tricky ones, please. So let's start off. Ben, what are some of the reasons for the development of the Australasian Health Facility Guidelines, the Oz HFG? Is it just good practice design?
Well, it is good practice design, but I suppose we're not reinventing the wheel. We've provided many healthcare facilities around Australia. So what we're doing is leaning on best practices of what works and what doesn't work. So it's a great tool and resource for architects, specifiers, interior designers, what works and what doesn't work. So, we've got a template there. And again, when we talk about, a fluid ecosystem compared to a static one, we're always looking at emerging models. We're looking at best practice health guidelines and new and innovative ways to deliver healthcare.
Great. And question number 2, how many HPUs, and that's health protection units,
Health planning
are there in mental health? Is it 3, 8, 6?
There are 6.
6. And take us through, you certainly went through them: child and adolescent, psychiatric, adult acute mental, older people's acute mental,
Correct.
Non-acute mental, and that's extended care, and mental health intensive.
That's correct.
So that's your 6 across HPUs. Now going down to this one, you did detail this one, but what is a PECC?
So a psychiatric emergency care centre. So typically, when someone presents to an emergency care centre that doesn't really need long-term stay for mental health, so that is one of the HPUs that are a part of the 6 that make up, the comprehensive mental health care plan.
Perfect. And what are the 2 main aspects designers need to balance for mental health?
Well, it's really important. So security and safety are the 2 major design principles that you need to adhere to when looking at any mental health facility.
Yep. Bit of risk in there, and maybe just sense of autonomy, control.
Absolutely.
As well, maybe. What are some of the risks that must be managed in a mental health setting?
Risk? Well, what do you mean by what risks?
Well, maybe, and you did go through this substance misuse, so destructive behaviour. So risk just in terms of the overall setting. Sorry.
Yeah, so you want to minimise, risk not only to the inpatient but also to other patients there, to staff, to visitors. But you also want to minimise, drug use, escaping, absconding. So how do you design a facility that inhibits someone from escaping? How do you design a facility by inhibiting someone to get contraband into the facility? So these are the areas you need to look at. Yes.
Yeah. And self-harm and that outward violence as well,
Well,
you're
that's a big
thinking at
one.
it from all sides.
Absolutely, yes. And you've got to sometimes put yourself in the mind of an acute patient that is suffering severe mental health. And sometimes it's difficult. It's a very, very difficult thing to come to, but and you got to look at certain ways where people can potentially try and self-harm and try to mitigate and eliminate those elements.
Yeah, there's some creative options. I saw the ligature point in the presentation with a pen, but
I've seen it all. I've seen in a prison
I'm
situation where a person has on an anti-vandal torque screw has just put their thumb in there day after day after day, created a callus, and they were able to then use their thumb as a tool to then start undoing screws within that ensuite.
Wow, you've got to think of so many things. Now, this one was an interesting one to me. Are there any Australian standards governing design of bathrooms in mental health? And
well, unfortunately,
what are they?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's none. We don't have a dedicated standard to mental health in designing in bathrooms. So what we do, we look at global best practices. So as illustrated in the CPD, we're looking at the UK and we're looking at the USA. So at Galvin Engineering, we've tried to combine both of those testing elements, and that's we have a testing methodology that we employ on our products. So they're not just random tests either. The methodology has to be consistent. So whether it's going to be a blunt instrument, how many times do you hit that, and how much repetitive? So it's not just hitting it once or twice. You've got to hit that hundreds of times. So there needs to be a methodology that you need to employ where you can then say with a high level of confidence, look, we've got the documentation to prove that we do eliminate this and we do eliminate that. It all depends on what the question is, but we can, look, if anyone in this CPD presentation is going to be designing a mental health bathroom, we can show you these documentations and the methodology and why we've gone about it and the test results from it.
Yeah, great. Question number 7, what risk does anti-ligature design address?
Well, it addresses self-harm, essentially. So whether it's wedging, whether it's binding, essentially you don't want anyone to be able to tie off to anything and then potentially crocodile roll on the ground and commit self-harm. So you're trying to eliminate all of those processes.
Yeah. Why? Well, this one's a self-answered, I suppose, but why is product robustness important in mental health?
Well, you don't want anything to break or to have the product inoperable. So, and and again with breakage, you don't want anyone to ingest any of the product. And not only tamper-proof or anti-vandal is important in mental health, it's important in a lot of different areas as well. We look at school design, we look at other designs. These are really important principles that we need to adhere to. And
remembering everyone, the presentation will be available for you to go back and look over all of these points that Ben's raised today. But naming 2 of the testing methodologies used in the US, I think I remember a couple: wedging, looping. Any more you can throw at me, Ben?
Jumping. There's also there's a few I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But
contraband storage.
Contraband storage, yeah. There's a few there. So I can I do believe this is available as a PDF. We can send this to our online attendees. Yeah. So everything will be there, yes.
Perfect. And now jumping over to lead for our last question. What is the new threshold for lead content in plumbing fixtures in NCC 2022? Is it less than equal to 4.5%, 0%, or less than or equal to 0.25%?
So it's 0.25%. So the NCC is the National Construction Code. So Australia is now implementing a higher standard and a new standard, well, what we've typically had. So in Australia, typically any brass or DZR brass that's come into the country usually contains anywhere between 4.5 to 2% of lead content within that DZR brass. So what we're looking for is a higher standard. So standards that we're mimicking are closely aligned to the US and Canadian standard, where they don't allow any lead within that DZR brass to exceed 0.25%. Do you want an explanation of how this has come about in Australia?
You could give a little bit if you like.
Okay, so first of all, I think it's probably this situation reared its head a while ago with the Aldi tap recall. So Aldi was selling some taps that had a really, really high lead content within that DZR brass. So they were recalled as a safety issue. Second of all, the Perth Royal Children's Hospital that was delayed for about 2 to 3 years had higher than expected levels of lead within that facility. And lead contamination will mainly affect the young and the elderly. So not a really, really great ideal situation to have higher than expected levels of lead within the water supply in a children's hospital. So how that came about when they were doing new works, they released a dead leg of water that had been sitting in the hydraulic system for about 20 years. That then contaminated the hydraulic system throughout the facility. So how they try to combat that was they try to over-chlorinate the system to try and get rid of that lead, but that led to the chlorinization eating away at the inlets for the thermostatic mixing valves, which then had lead going throughout the system. So it took years to get that out. And more locally here in Victoria, we had a situation in Geelong where Barwon Water and the City Council were testing lead content within the water supply in public areas and found that higher than expected levels of lead. So this went to very high levels of the Department of Health, local government, federal government. The first, I suppose, entity or body or institution that has developed or is implemented these higher standards has been the VSBA, so the Victorian School Building Authority. Back in 2019, they had a new mandate. Any new facility upgrades have to have low lead or lead-free tapware in all of those facilities. So this has been going around now for, it's 2019, so 4 years. And at Galvin Engineering, we were the first to market to provide our customers a higher level of choice with low lead and lead-free tapware. So obviously being a WA-based company and with the situation that happened in the Royal Children's Hospital over there, we found the need that, okay, well, this is where the industry's going. So the NCC and the ABCB, which is the Australian Building Construction Code, they have developed and are slowly implementing back, I think it's been delayed now, but from September 2022 now to, I believe, might be September 2025. Originally, that's what it was forecasted to. This was a time frame to allow the industry, manufacturers, suppliers to get their act together. And now it will be illegal after that September 2025 date to supply any fixture or tapware that contains more than 0.25% of lead content within that product.
Good changes to come then. Now, I know we've touched on Australian standards a couple of times, but a couple of questions around 1428. Obviously not mental health, but where is there a grey area? Do we follow those guidelines or a bit of a mix with best practice?
There is a grey area when it comes to accessibility and mobility, so 1428.2. So when we're looking at that, there's certain requirements of where your basin has to be, the height of the basin, the height of the mirror, certain heights, of your water supply. There's certain requirements that fall under that 1428.2. Now, where we're at odds with anti-ligature design, because our basins have a bit of an upskirt on it, and because it has an integrated spout, we miss out on compliance to 1428.2 by about 25, 30 millimetres. So do we adhere to anti-ligature properties, or do we adhere to the letter of the law of 1428.2? So this is where there needs to be a little bit of a common sense approach, and understanding, look, we might not be able, so what's more important? That's the question. So whether it's going to be in a private facility, you might be able to get away with having a standard basin that's not anti-ligature because you're not going to have high levels of acute mental health patients. Where public, it might be a little bit different. So it's kind of horses for courses. It depends on the facility, depends on the circumstances, depends on the client, and depends on the future clientele as well.
You got to get it right. So touching in or catching up with the Galvin team is probably something to have a discussion on for sure.
Yeah, adherence to both is difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors that need to be understood in when you're going to make that decision. What are we going to adhere to? Is anti-leakage more important, or is following the letter of the law of 1428.2 critical? These are the things to understand and to discuss as well.
Now, this was asked, a question that was asked earlier on, but you did sort of answer it. But I'll ask it again. Why do you not specify a single lever mixer in mental health bathrooms? What is the consideration, and what then is the alternative, and what can you get away with?
So I think we all know what a single lever mixer looks like, but obviously that will create a ligature point. You can easily tie off on that. So what you're looking for, so the alternative to a single lever mixer would be, in that slide that was shown, is a mixer which is temperature controlled, but it doesn't have any stems, it doesn't have any ligature points. So very, very different. But a standard single lever mixer, well, what you'd put in as an alternative to that, with our basins, they have an integrated spout, so you don't have a spout, and you'd have conical wall top assemblies. So conical wall top assemblies are very smooth, they're very tapered, and it's almost impossible it is impossible to tie off on those and create a ligature point.
Now, I suppose going on from that sort of answer, thermostatic mixing valves, importance, benefits, how do you make that happen?
So typically a thermostatic mixing valve, so you have two options. You've got a point of use thermostatic mixing valve where you can run hot and cold straight to the point or straight to the outlet, or you can have a multi-use TMV, typically in a stainless steel cabinet, in a wall, in a ceiling, which would pick up multiple fixtures. So some of the advantages of having a point of use thermostatic mixing valve, you're running hot and cold water directly to that point. So you're eliminating potential pathogens like Legionella, where that multi-use TMV in Australia, in Victoria, and there's different standards in New South Wales, but in Victoria, where that TMV is mounted, the outlet can't be more than 6 meters from that point. So what can potentially happen? You've got warm water coming through that piping system to the outlet. That's where you've got that Goldilocks area of pathogen growth between the 24 degrees C, 34 degrees C. Pathogens love that degree and love that environment, and that's where they breed and multiply. So by having a point of use thermostatic mixing valve, you're essentially eliminating that, and that can be part of your infection control process as well.
And speaking to sort of taps, is there sensor taps? Would you recommend sensor taps? Does that create additional issues? What would you recommend?
Yeah, sensor taps can be helpful, especially with mobility or less mobility, harder to activate. So when we're looking at ergonomic designs, ease of activation. Some patients might not be able to have the dexterity to operate or activate some of those tapware. So sensor taps could be a perfect solution to overcome some of those issues.
And moving into materials, and maybe you can expand on this, Ben, just in terms of your materials that your fittings, your fixtures that they're sort of coming in. That you mentioned solid surface, you mentioned other materials, lead-free, all those sorts of things. Are there specific materials that you would recommend in this total space?
Yeah, well, going back onto the lead-free thing, it's really important for specifiers and architects to understand this, because essentially you want to future-proof that facility. So if you're designing a facility now, and most architectural firms will have a standard specification that they've already done, and that's great because they're selecting products that have been used previously, they're fit for purpose, they know they work, and they've got the warranty backups. With these new changes that have been coming in with the low lead-free tapware, if you don't change those standard specs, if you're specifying a product that has that 4.5 to 2% lead content, in 3 years, you're not going to be able to get that product again. It won't be on the market. So aesthetically speaking, if you've got a bank of taps and one of those fails, do you then have to replace all of those taps as an aesthetic process? So it's really important to understand this and really consider what products you're specifying now, which will essentially future-proof that facility. And you're looking at cost. Everyone's looking at budget restraints. Money's tight at the moment across the board, especially in Victoria with our state government. So we want to minimise as much, ongoing costs as we possibly can. So not only you specify fit for purpose products that are compliant, you're also looking after the facility and your client as well by minimising those ongoing costs.
Little bit, and going back to sort of lead-free and just understanding watermark, NCC, lead-free requirements. Are there difference? Is it you're just trying to hit the best of everything, or are there differences there?
Well, everything we do in as manufacturers and everyone in plumbing, we're all governed by AS 3500. So with watermark, it's a different thing. You have to, that's obviously an accreditation purpose. Watermark will definitely change. Any product that exceeds the 0.25% lead content within their product will not get watermark going forward or after September 2025. You've also got WELS approvals. So WELS approvals is the water efficiency of that product. And some government jobs you're looking at, they want certain WELS ratings on their product for ESD or ESD requirements. So you're always looking at water conservation, saving water, and having the most efficient tapware that you can possibly have. And also, with Galvin Engineering, we're Australian-made products. So especially with government jobs, you've got a lot of components like local jobs first, where you have to have a lot of Australian or local made content. And, that fits the bill, having an Australian manufacturer supplying tapware.
Makes sense. Tell me about, so your local Australian, can I get CAD drawings, technical specifications, product samples from the team? Can someone come out and talk to me? Absolutely.
Yeah, we're always here, happy to help and assist. Any CAD, Revit, any of those drawings, all they are is requested. Typically, you can just grab them off our website, or if there's anything more detailed or anything you need, we're always here, happy to help and assist.
And just going back, just as we sort of start to wrap up, when I'm writing my specification, do you have, or can you help me with those specifications? So if I'm trying to comply with every code, every watermark, every lead-free, can you help me to write that specification to make sure I've ticked all those boxes and I can't have a change out or someone find something cheaper, for example, that then doesn't comply or then does not achieve what I wish to or need to within my design?
Well, I feel at Galvin Engineering, we're actually driving this space in mental health. We always offer that services. So we work extensively with clients, architects, designers, interior designers. We're consistently providing and helping specifications and providing fit for purpose products and best solutions. Yeah, so we do offer that service, but it is hard. And when you specify Galvin Engineering, because we do the testing, because there are no testing, so we're relying on global testing and international testing for anti-ligature and robustness, we can provide that documentation. So that will give you a level of assurity and confidence that you're providing and specifying the right product.
Brilliant. As we wrap up, Ben, if you can just give me a bit of an overview, just to make sure that everybody is really clear on the points today, the Galvin offering, what you're available for as we wrap up the day. Can you give me a couple of key points we need to be remembering for our future design?
Well, when you think about Galvin Engineering, the most important point you need to think of is we provide water solutions for a healthier environment. That's our aim. That's our motto. That's what we're here to deliver. And if you've ever dealt with anyone from Galvin Engineering, I'm sure that you would have heard that term. Me personally and my colleagues here, not only in Victoria, but around the country, we're always happy and willing to work with architects to provide and help and assist in achieving best practice solutions for mental health bathrooms. Not only in that area, but also education, healthcare, corrections, parks and recreations. We're here to help in any of those areas. And also being Australian-made. There's not many Australian-made companies left or producers that produce commercial-grade tapware. So we'd like to get some support from architects as well. And when we're looking at global shipping delays and all of this kind of stuff, we've got the product here on the shelf, so there's not an issue. You've got local support for warranty and backup, and any after sales and service. We're always here, and because we manufacture, we believe in our product, and we back our product and support our product.
Brilliant. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you, Ben, on our discussion for designing for healthcare facilities and behaviour. A reminder to reach out to the Galvin team. So many queries and interesting comments around global standards and compliances and standards, and Ben's details will be sent following our 2-day series. So thank you to everyone for your participation again this morning. Grab a little bit of lunch, join me back here. I look forward to welcoming you at our afternoon session at 12:45 with Dylan and Evan from Wholesome, and they're presenting building materials for a low carbon world. I'll see you shortly.
Thank you.